Thank you, Louise, for agreeing to come on the podcast. Funny how life works out. We've been talking for a couple of years, 4 years.
Yeah. I think Green Meets Grey, wasn't it, when you were one of our judges?
Yes, yeah. Oh my goodness, that was a long time. Festival of Digital Disruption. I remember
Yes.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we were in a room and allowed on a stage. Yeah, I love that. So this is about you anyway, not about me being on your stage. Louise, for the listeners, could you please tell us your full name? Don't have to include your middle name. You might, if it's interesting, you might like to. And what it is you do today.
So I'm Louize Clarke. I'm Louise with a Z, but I wasn't officially born with a Z. I was an S, and then when my mum wouldn't let me change my name at 12, I added the Z in. It's been my rebellion ever since. Very small. I wear lots of hats, but they're all about creating new pools of talent for people. So either through events or through courses, and we also have a skills hub in Reading Town Centre.
Okay, and the name of that hub is?
It's the Curious Lounge, place to listen, learn and meet.
Brilliant. Just say one thing you said right at the beginning there, that Z, so did you change it by deed poll?
No, I haven't. It's stuck there. And because I've got married, divorced and remarried again, people can still find me with my different surnames with the Z in there.
Ah, I love that. So you've been, and if I were to look at your official job title, not official job title, on LinkedIn, it says Chief Mischief Maker, which, I mean, that's kind of like what I would like to be when I grow up. So that's always been there then. You've always had a sense of your own destiny and carving things out.
I think it's my dad's fault. My dad always taught me that not to challenge for challenge sake, but actually you don't have to just accept things and you can question things. I think I've always had that slightly, not rebellious nature, but he's definitely instilled that in me.
Fantastic. Well, this will probably inform your career story then. So tell me what your memories are of secondary school.
So I thought secondary school completely got in the way of my social life and hanging out with boys. I attended school, I did okay, but it didn't inspire me. I did well in French and art because I really liked the teachers, whereas I found most of it was just people droning at me, didn't engage me. And I loved running, so we had a really great sports teacher. But other than that, I just felt like wasting my time, really.
So running and painting and speaking French.
Yes.
Yeah. And then when you came to sit your exams, how did you get on? Can you remember?
So I got an A in French. I got C's in everything else. I can't remember the subjects I studied. I was trying to think about this the other day planning, and I got a D in maths. I mean, my mum gave me extra maths lessons and I just didn't gel with it. It just didn't make logical sense to me. Whereas I think if I'd have been shown why I was learning it, it probably would have meant so much more to me. So I did average. I don't think there was any expectation from my parents about what I was going to do. So I didn't feel any pressure. It was just kind of turn up and see what happens, which isn't probably the best strategy. And I was also the first year GCSEs. So we were in that experimental pool of, which actually the coursework really suited me. Exams and all the pressure just is not my superpower.
No. And so when you're in that experimental year, actually, so it was GCEs before, wasn't it? Is that right? Was it O levels, GCEs, GCSEs, maybe?
It was always GCSEs, but my memory of back then, I blotted a lot of that out, to be honest.
Yeah. And how was it kind of set up in terms of what happened afterwards? So were you told you need to think about college and uni, or you need to go to work? Was there any steer from your teachers or parents on that front?
Teachers, I don't remember any steer at all, although I think they were very obsessed with sixth form, which I knew I wasn't going to do because I was out of the gates the minute I could, down the road. My parents actually encouraged me to do a lot of temping work. So it was in the days when you could literally wander into a temping agency. So every holiday I had, I worked. And I went to all different places. I did things from binding accounts at what was is now Deloitte, but was back then. I did court logging in the magistrate's court. I just went everywhere. And I think for me, that opened my eyes to there's this whole world out there. But I think I wasn't quite ready to be a proper grown up and work all the time. So I took the decision to go to college. Again, that wasn't really my parents. I think I just thought it might be fun. It's a bit more grown up. But I maybe hadn't finished my education. So
Okay.
I went
And
to Reading
yeah.
College and studied business and a BTEC in business and finance.
Okay. And did you complete the course?
I did, but I have to say most of my education was down the pub playing pool. So I think, we all got through it. But again, I really loved the marketing modules. The whole
Yeah.
year failed the accountancy module because we had such a bad, literally the whole year. So
Right.
I don't know. I think I passed. I can't even remember what my grades were, but I remember they were quite good. But it just, again, felt like not really for me, this educational stuff.
And so you finished with your you got your BTEC.
Yeah.
You've got some first lot of GCSEs. All the employers are going, well, I don't know what that score means. Um, what happened from there?
I think I just wandered it again into a temping agency. So I thought, no one in our family has ever been to university and still hasn't been to university. So I think, they're from working class backgrounds. My parents both came from council house. It's all about earning money.
Yeah.
So university definitely wasn't a thing. And I think if I look back now, I probably could have gone and had some fun, because I don't think you actually need to attend too many lessons. So I maybe missed out there.
Yeah.
But I just wandered into a temping agency and went for some interviews. And then I think I took the first job I got offered because I thought, this will do. And so I had no plan. I think I just thought I'll go and see what happens. But I was very motivated by money.
Yeah. And so your first job, where were you working then? Your first full-time role?
So I went to work for Raycall Radio. So it was a military comms company, very male heavy. I started off in the Middle East team, and then the war happened. So our team got disbanded within the first month. So I was then moved to the Sub-Saharan African team, which I really, really enjoyed. It was all older men, travelled a lot. But actually, I quite enjoyed just looking at the international piece.
And this was, but from the UK?
Yes.
Yeah, you didn't get sent out to Sub-Saharan Africa.
Really frustratingly, I just got to the point where I probably was going to go, and I just thought, oh no, I don't want to work with a load of old men. And I look back, like Namibia, I still want to go to because that really sits well with me. I love the people there. So missed opportunity, because I think I could have actually had not a bad starting career. I was there probably 18 months.
Right, okay. And what prompted you to move on to your next role from there?
I think it was looking for something that didn't just have old men. It was in the days when people sat and smoked at their desks. So the guy that sat in me had white hair that was actually yellow. And it was just, I don't know, as a young person, this is what I want. So again, I think I quite liked the sales and marketing. So I wanted to find a role that looked like that. So I ended up working for a company that put holes in metal.
Okay.
Which I actually really enjoyed, and I still have really fond memories because they were really supportive. And I spent my life kind of wandering around finding holes in things. And we had a contract with McLaren, so I got to go and see some really cool cars. And because you think, oh, holes in metal, really boring. And Roberts Radio were one of their customers. So it was
very trendy now.
I know. I wish I'd kind of bagged a couple of the metal grills, because they probably were something now. And that really did give me, I had a hugely supportive boss in terms of getting me on the sales and marketing journey. And I really loved it. But I think after a while, I did get a bit fed up of all the oil. When you're tottering through the shop floor, it's like, but it was good. And again, a different industry, fairly male dominated.
Okay, so you've got military, metal, McLaren's, radio, and then what?
Again, I kind of thought I quite like sales and marketing, so I'll find another sales and marketing role. I think I definitely had bought my first house by now, so I was quite motivated to pay my mortgage and buy stuff. Again, I don't even know where the job came from. It would have been through an agency, because I think everything back then was through an agency. I was working back in it's Orbital, so it wasn't military comms, but it was comms. So I didn't set out in my career to be in tech, but I just kind of fell into it. They also had the mobile phone division when Orbital were actually quite cool mobiles. So I think
Yeah.
whilst I wasn't in that bit, I thought, well, this might be quite a good company. You know, look at those great big mobiles I could be walking around with. And yeah, so that kind of, again, I was working in an international team, so looking after sales and marketing, again, very male dominated. Didn't get to do the travel there. And then they got taken over by Ericsson.
Okay.
So I didn't naturally decide to leave there because I was actually having quite a good time. And again, I had a really supportive boss. So I've been really lucky to have really good male bosses.
And was there any point at which there was an expectation or a belief that you ought to have gone to uni, or were you working around people that had a different route into the industry than you did?
I don't think people even talked about education. I think tech is a bit more chilled out. You know, I think if you're an accountant or a lawyer, you know, that prescribed a doctor, an architect. But I think people from varying backgrounds. I mean, some of the best salespeople come from disadvantaged backgrounds. So there were people that had come from. So I've never found not going to university has held me back.
No.
Maybe that's lack of ambition. I never wanted to go for that senior management role that needed but no.
Okay. And so you spent quite a bit of time, employed by other companies, but the kind of, most recent chunk of your career, or where you've really established yourself, is very entrepreneurial. So I'm really interested to know how you've gone from being an employee to setting up something of your own.
So I think I eventually ended up in recruitment. Apologies for that. I loved recruitment.
I've been there too. I loved it.
I really loved it, but I hated the practice of recruitment. So I could see that done well, it was a good thing.
Yeah.
So I think I then got together with Matt, who also was from recruitment, and we decided that we would actually just do our own thing, and we'd sleep at night. And also we kind of wanted to work slightly less hours because our son was just starting secondary school.
Yeah.
And actually I found he needed more time secondary school in terms of kind of attending those football matches that were after school and all those things. So it was almost like a lifestyle, but actually some freedom and being able to pick the clients you wanted to work with, work on the projects you wanted to work with, do recruitment properly. So I don't think we ever set out to say, we're entrepreneurs and we're going to set up this business. It just kind of happened. And I think since then, kind of recruitment was great, but I'd kind of done it. I think I'd had enough of doing. I think a lot of our clients ended up being bought by large companies, and I've never wanted to work with large companies. Yeah. So I had to kind of think, what do I want to be when I grow up? I ended up opening up a co-working space in Green Park. Never decided to have a co-working space, but got offered. I was actually looking for a property in the town centre to try and find startups in the Thames Valley. So it was going to be shop a startup. And it went from having a little shop front to having nearly 5,000 square foot on Green Park and being given the space to kind of pop up. Yeah.
And just, I guess, to come back to a couple of points there. So at a time when, my first proper job was in recruitment. I worked for Reed, at a time when the recruitment agencies were big, you had Adecco, Alfred Marks, wasn't it? But there were lots of very big high street recruiters. And you said, I'm going to set up an agency. This is quite disruptive behaviour, Louise.
I think, again, I had one of the first company I went to recruit with, I had a really, really good boss who showed me that how it could be done properly. Unfortunately, it was then taken over by a bigger company who then put all the processes in. So I think I wanted to go back to that, actually do it properly. We were very niche. I love recruiting sales and marketing people. We decided we'd work with North American companies beachheading into Europe. Right. And rolling out European sales teams. So actually every candidate we placed, we took out to dinner. So we were going to Paris and Madrid. So actually it was a nice lifestyle.
Yes, that is recruitment done properly.
Yeah. I think, like I said, it was a kind of, so we could travel, we could have a life, we could love doing what we're doing, work with really innovative entrepreneurial companies. And maybe that's where my actually seeing how different that they behave has inspired me to go on and do things.
Right. Okay. And when you were looking at placing candidates or, searching for candidates,
Yeah.
'cause this ties into, what the past podcast is about. What was it that you looked for? So let's say a client came to you and said, I need 3 salespeople. How would you approach that?
So the people we were working with didn't really want people from corporates, so that was fairly
Right.
easy. Although actually, one of my hires was actually placing someone from a corporate. One of my is a client that didn't like people from corporates or brown shoes, and this was someone in a corporate with brown shoes. So that's the biggest one. More track records. Have they worked in the right companies? What's their attitude like? Never looked at education.
Right.
Sales and marketing never ever looked at education.
Yeah.
It was more about kind of attitude and mindset.
Yeah.
We headhunted everybody.
Yeah. Okay. And how do you measure that when you're looking at attitude? What is it that you're saying, yeah, that's a good sign, that stands out for me?
It's really hard because I think it's intuition. Over a while, you do have that sort of intuition. The other thing is we would ring people at varying times. They weren't expecting us to see how they behaved.
Yeah.
I think there's just lots of, it's much easier now in the digital world to go and kind of stalk people. So you do become that kind of actually super stalker, looking at people's backgrounds.
Yeah. Research, super researcher.
Yeah, I mean, CVs I used to discount. In fact, I'd say
Right.
to most of our clients, don't even bother reading the CV, because if we've met, I think we interviewed everyone face to face, or
Yeah.
it was harder with the European, but I think we just went through a rigorous process to know, and you put tests in place.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really it's really interesting to know, because for me, I'm sort of thinking about how our education system, it teaches us about the world of work, and then what it's actually like when we get out there. So it's great to hear when, organizations, and someone I interviewed the other day said she looks at the personal statement. It's the kind of education thing is not what's top of her list.
Yeah.
So you did recruitment and you did it well, and you had some lovely dinners, and
Yeah.
then you've got 5,000 square foot that you're running on Green Park.
And I suppose that was disruptive again, that I was
Yeah.
really tired of the Thames Valley being pale, melon and stale. It was a
Yeah.
time when Tech Nation were, Shoreditch was everything.
Yeah.
And Tech Nation did the first Tech Nation report and were refusing to put Reading into it. So I kind of went, well, and my biggest regret is actually getting them to put Reading into it, because I think Reading would have woken up had Tech Nation not put them in.
Right.
So,
Okay.
so yeah, it was. We were trying to find where were the innovative companies in the Thames Valley, and by having a physical location,
Yeah.
it was kind of right. Let's go out and find them.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess for those people that don't know or live in or near Reading, at the time you were doing that, there were the biggest software companies in the world had headquarters in Reading. Yeah.
But I think that's one of the challenges, that they have headquarters here, but they don't feel like they're attached to the Thames Valley. It's almost like they parachute in this building and then they don't engage in the local community.
Right.
I think that's something we're still trying to fix, about Thames Valley doesn't collaborate and play nicely. And I'm trying to kind of break down that old guard of, actually, we've got some really exciting tech clusters across the UK, and we really need to get our act together and start playing nicely as a region.
Yeah. And after Green Park then, so what happened from there?
So I was running Digital Gun, which is my relaunches and restart courses, and we were doing a lot of events like the Festival of Digital Disruption in the town centre. And Reading had nowhere. I mean, the town hall was great, but it was really expensive to try and run events in. And there was nowhere in the town centre to actually bring people together. So I realised Green Park was great, but actually we needed something right by the train station to bring speakers into, because they didn't want to make the extra 15-minute out to Green Park.
Yeah.
So Thames Valley Berkshire LEP had some funding that was skills capital funding that meant that we could then put a bid in, which actually we submitted on the last day of the Festival of Digital Disruption. So literally, as you finished judging, we were writing the bid in the town hall.
Right.
To unlock some funding to actually get a building and do the building up. So thankfully our bid in partnership with Reading Council and Reading UKCIC was successful, because as a limited company we couldn't land skills funding money.
Okay, yeah.
So then it was like, oh great, we've got all this money, we've now got to find a building. So the original building that we started working on was derelict, 5 floors right by the train station, that had pigeons living in the roof.
Yeah.
But we thought actually this would be quite cool, we can do it up.
Yeah.
And then it turned out that building wasn't going to work. So we then had to turn a business model from we're not going to be paying any rent in this building to, oh my God, we've got to pay town centre rents, rates, service charges. And that's where we found we wanted to be right by the train station. And we found the Pinnacle building, which is now the home to the Curious Lounge. So we opened it within 6 weeks in November 2019.
Wow. And Digital Gum as a kind of a program or service offering, what does that do? So you said relaunches and...
Yeah, so it was an idea, again, a frustration I had, that people weren't looking at people who had career gaps. So long-term carers, mothers, people who'd been ill, and also young people who kind of were just going around in circles or didn't know kind of. So one of my students got pregnant at 18, wants to get a job to kind of look after her son, but couldn't quite get back into this sort of work thing. So I decided that we would teach people digital skills, not necessarily because they wanted to be in digital careers, but to give them the confidence to go out and even start the job search.
Yeah.
So I built the content from scratch, because I thought if an idiot like me could learn it, I could teach people the content. And also I think people who are experts in their fields quite often don't understand the gap between someone who's terrified of everything and actually using the technology. So it's very hands-on. We work on a charity project every cohort. So the charity come and tell them what their challenges are, what they want the team to do. So everything they learn, they're putting into practice. And then the final week they pitch back to their charity.
Right. So this all feeds into, as you said, about engaging the community, really all of the community.
Yes.
So you're connecting with charities, with people who want to enter the workforce, who might not be able to seek employment, or, might not even have the confidence to seek employment. This is touching all parts of the Thames Valley community.
Yeah, and I think it's been quite hard to reach, because if you're not on digital, how do you reach these people? So we've got a kickstart joining us next week. He's going to be all about community engagement. How do we go out and actually physically talk to people instead of just pushing out these social media campaigns? So we are actually working with a wider group of people.
Wow.
And age-wise, Digital Gum, my last cohort had from 18 to 62 on, and it was awesome because they all bounce off each other. And I think all too often, so people get obsessed by NEETs and they just put NEETs people all together in one room. It's like, well, what about I put them with other people?
Yeah.
So gets inspired. So that's why I quite like the diverse groups. I don't want all just one age profile.
Yeah. So NEETs is not in education
And
employment
employment or training. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What have been your, because there's loads for me where I'm thinking, oh my goodness, so you're applying for, well, it would have been what, EU funding maybe at the time?
It was actually UK funding. It was UK government funding. Yeah.
Okay. But doing a bid of that significance, all of these things, lots of people be terrified wouldn't even know where to start. So how did you pick up the skills to do that?
So I think in fairness, our partners did a lot of they understand the bid writing. So it was our concept and our vision. So I think we articulate that, but they knew how to fill out the bid process, because actually I don't think you enter bids lighthearted. It's not something I think I'd ever want to do again.
No.
I don't think the smaller funding pots and around skills, yes, but I think the big, you've really got to want to do it.
Yeah.
Not for me.
No, and in that case, then, what have you learned about sort of forming and building those partnerships? So you said you and Matt come up with these really innovative, disruptive ideas, but you are entering into a process that involves taking on buildings, writing bids, connecting with local authorities, which is not easy. What have you learnt about building your network and creating partnerships?
I think public and private partnerships can be quite challenging, because I think it's like a dog and a cat talking to each other. So I think that is, it's completely different language. I mean, we were really lucky that we just got, once the money came through the council, we were it was up to us to deliver it.
Okay.
So we could, we worked with local companies, so we hustled really hard on the funding. So I think we delivered a £350,000 project with 265,000 in cash. So, we were really we could be creative because we were a small company. So I think it should work well together. We did a lot of doing up vintage furniture. So Matt got tendonitis having taken staples out of G-plan chairs.
Wow.
It was really rewarding working with a social enterprise who work with recovering drug addicts and alcoholics. So we've got a lot of wood bespoke pieces from them. We did the sustainability piece and worked with a local office furniture company. So it was all pre-loved that we had recovered.
Yeah.
So we've tried to kind of live that local, be sustainable. I mean, we found that fit out, actually, everyone that came in didn't get our vision, because I think fit out companies, it's always the same. You need to buy their kind of how it looks.
Yeah.
So the fit out was really simple. It was just build us some training rooms and we'll do the rest of it.
Okay. And so you and Matt live together, work together, pursue a vision together. What tips do you have for people that are looking to create a business or a partnership with their partner?
I think you have to have a shared vision. I think you have to be completely different. I mean, I'm the lunatic that needs bringing back and not running off on crazy ideas. Matt's the level-headed one. So I think you definitely have to have different skill sets. I don't think we've quite reached the work-life balance with this project at the minute. I mean, COVID hasn't exactly helped with that, but we're trying to, not work weekends. I think that's a big thing, that I'm quite a workaholic, so I'm trying to wrestle myself back into don't do that stuff.
Yeah.
But I think if you love what you do, I mean, we genuinely are really, really passionate about the project. So prior to COVID, we were working from 7 a.m. until 9:30 at night. Okay, we were a bit tired by the end of the week, but if you love what you do and you're building something and you have a shared goal, it isn't really like work.
And what have been the sort of moments for you where you've gone, yes, like if you sort of look at the past, I don't know, well, look at what you've built with Curious Lounge and Digital Gum, and are there moments when you've gone, I can't believe we did that or achieved that?
I think looking at the building, we're still really, really proud of the design and just I think particularly when we get the young people coming in who haven't been in that kind of environment and are really inspired. So we've had kids come in and going, oh my God, I'm just, so-and-so from the block. I never thought I'd be in a building like this and I love it. So I think we've got that balance right between being inspirational, but really welcoming and comfortable. So I think that always, when we get young people in, and quite often the first week, they're kind of looking at their feet. And then by the second or third week they're really engaging. So that is hugely rewarding. I mean, I love Digital Gum when they do their kind of end of the course and they do their pitch and the charities are blown away and they're all like, oh my God, we did this as a team. And
Yeah,
I think it's the people, it's seeing the positive outcomes and people moving forward is kind of the most exciting thing.
and what sort of successes have your people had that have been through the program?
It's been not everyone's gone on to get jobs, but I think the thing for me is, so people have gone on to get jobs and people still contact me now and say that changed my life. Actually, I didn't think. People have set up businesses. Some people come off the course and actually they're not ready to go job hunting. And I think even just going through that 4-week process to say, I'm not ready to leave the kids behind, I'm not mentally ready. But when I get a call a year later to say, can you give me a reference? Because actually I've gone out and got that job because of doing Digital Gum.
Yeah.
They all get a pencil case week 1 and a little goodie bag. And when they quite often say to me, they still have their pencil cases. And when they're having a bad day, they kind of remember. So I think it's more about, it changes people's mindsets and their belief in themselves. So I think that's been the biggest achievement. I'd like to get more employers on board who are more open to employing people part-time. I think COVID will be hugely positive for that once we get out the other side of it. because I
Yeah.
think people have realised that actually you can work flexibly. You don't need to go in the office all the time.
Yeah. And are any of the people that come through your program, like, do they ask you about your own experience of school and education?
Um, I think I share with them. I mean, our whole thing is we laugh while we learn. So I'm really happy to admit all the stupid things I've done. So I
Yeah.
think I do talk about my background, and we have people on the courses that have been through university. We have people that haven't been through university.
Yeah.
Um, but I think the one thing everyone learns is don't judge.
Mm,
Everyone comes through different routes, and everyone's got something to offer.
yeah. And how about for your son? Has what you and Matt have built as that sort of shaped where he wants to take his career? Is he now out of education? What was your
So he was a bit like me, and that's maybe because he lives with me. But I think he he did much better than I did at school. You know, he had
Yeah,
really good grades, but I just it was an all boys school, and I think he'd had enough of it.
yeah,
So he was very creative and took the decision to go to Farnborough College and study design. But again, it was a weird age, and he just, a year into it, he just wasn't enjoying it. So I
mm,
was actually doing the digital gum. I was building the content and building the brand at the time. So he came to work for me as a digital apprentice for a year. So
yeah,
all the logo design and everything came from him, which is quite nice to have that as a sort of family legacy.
yeah,
Um, but he just wasn't enjoying being in an office.
mm,
So he then went and did a bit of a ski season, because I thought actually that was good for him to go and do some of that, and then came back and again didn't know what he wanted to be. So he liked the idea of being outside, so he did a bit of roofing, he did a bit of landscaping. He
mm,
worked all the time, but he didn't know what he wanted to do. And then he fell into tree surgery, and he absolutely loves it. So he's outside, he's really healthy. He worked throughout the whole of COVID because he's key worker.
yeah,
uh, he's mentally much better, you know, he's just in a stronger, healthier place,
yeah,
interested in trees. I think he'll end up in New Zealand probably, because he wants to go and do big trees at some point. So
yeah.
I think
Really, really big trees.
so for us, our thing has always been with him, we don't really care what you do as long as you can pay your way, and whatever that means.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
as long as you're happy and you've got enough money to do what you want to do, that for me is far more important than climbing a career ladder.
yeah, yeah. It's really cool, and it's quite uh, it's sort of interesting to see how these things, I don't know, influence what you hope for your children, or whether your own experience ends up just becoming replayed through your
Yeah.
kids. If there's something that you kind of pass on genetically, I do wonder that with my two. I wonder if they will feel the same about school as I did. But
Yeah, because we never had the conversation about university with Jack. He just didn't want to go down that route. So, and I suppose it didn't naturally come to me as a conversation either.
and do you think that that is something that is kind of that takes place in school? Do you think that conversation is had with
I think
young
there's a lot
people?
of pressure to get people into sixth form, because
Mm,
then schools are still measured on university placements. So when we
yeah.
were running Green Meets Grey, we tried to run some things with colleges and get schools into colleges, and they didn't want
Mm.
to, because colleges are competitors in terms of their sixth form people, which I
Ah.
hadn't entered my head until I did that. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, I mean, for me, I didn't, because Jack didn't really know what he wanted to do. It was just like, why would you spend all that money going somewhere when you've got no idea what you want to study? And then that could be just wasted money. Because I find so many people study something and then they realize they didn't want to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I know my husband saved it all up to do, he did a degree. I won't say how old he is. Might not like that. But yeah, only recently, and did a maths degree.
Really?
Just to show that he could do it. I mean, you know, just throw that one in. Just did a maths degree, but yeah. But I think waiting until you have kind of found the thing that really, you know, floats your boat, and then you think, oh, I'm going to study that because I enjoy it. I think there's a
No,
lot to be said for that.
yeah, I agree. And I think there's so much learning content out there now. And I think the whole lifelong learning thing is really important. But you
Mm,
can consume it in different ways. I mean, we've done book launches, and people learn through reading a book or sitting with other people. So I think any route is now possible. And I think that's what we need to be educating more people, that actually can go to university later. You can
Yeah,
go back to college, or you don't have to do any of it.
yeah. And what's next then? What is next for you? What do you sort of hope
Uh,
for?
so we're working on the Festival of Digital Disruption. So that's 16 to 24-year-olds, inspiring them about creative digital and tech careers. And I
Yeah,
think actually the one good thing about COVID is I've now got an international speaker market I can go and talk to.
yeah,
So that's actually really quite exciting to do, blended this year.
yeah,
I sat in a room on my own last year, which wasn't huge. It was a good week, but it was quite lonely. So I'm
yeah.
looking forward to not doing that this year. We've got a lot of interesting announcements coming out for the Curious Lounge around learning content, upskilling the community. So that's really, really exciting. We've got lots of things we're working on. Getting back open properly. It still
Yeah.
feels like we're in this sort of, nobody quite knows how to behave. So I'm looking forward to some sort of normality. And I've got 6 digital gum courses to run between now and November.
Wow. Okay. And then as a kind of final thought, maybe, um, when you talked about your speakers and learning from books, and one thing that I remember reading about you was saying that you really loved the concept of being more pirate. Uh, and I'd love to just sort of know, how do you think people could embrace that mindset to kind of go after what they want?
I think it's not being afraid to question things. So I think too many people just accept the status quo. I think too many people challenge just for challenge sake. But I think if you genuinely believe in something and something needs fixing, I think actually get off of your backside and go and have a conversation with someone and see what you can do. And actually, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I mean,
Mm.
pirates weren't always successful, were they? So
No.
I just think, and I think finding your crew, actually people you want to hang out with and work with. I think that for me, surrounding yourself with people who inspire you is actually, that's kind of the pirate thing, isn't it? Working together.
Great. Well, that was brilliant. Thank you, Louise. You definitely inspire me. So if people want to get involved with what you're up to or are interested to find out more, what's the best place to find you?
Thecuriouslounge.co.uk. So we've got all our skills. We're looking to talk to employers. Yes, come and talk to the Curious Lounge.
Brilliant. Thanks, Louise.
Thank you.
Mm.